intimidating being here. You guys are a pretty big audience, but it's fun. So I tend to talk a lot. I'm going to try to keep this quick and succinct and to the point, but please come here and wrestle me and make me stop talking if I start going on about stuff that's uninteresting. So I put this here because I had no idea what I wanted to do growing up, but when I was in my teenage years, I realized I enjoyed painting. My mom was a sculptor, my grandma did tapestry, my step-grandfather was a set designer, my older brother was in advertising, but then again, my dad was an attorney, and so there's a lot of really kind of colliding concepts about work within my family, but there's a lot of artistic side. So I was like, oh, it's fun. Painting is fun. So I went to the school in Rio, which is really beautiful. It's a really old mansion that is like 100 years old, and people paint out by the school. They paint out in the yard. There's a lot of really interesting stuff going on, and so it really opened my eyes to different possibilities, but really quickly it sunk in that being an artist, and especially doing that in Brazil, was going to be really tough. You know, either you're super successful and you make tons of money, or you have a really hard time. And the people that are really successful are just such a tiny percentage that I thought, let's look around, what else is there? And I found out about graphic design a little later. But for me, after painting for 7, 8 years and doing sculpting and photography and understanding, trying out, basically just experimenting, I realized, and when I finally sat in front of the computer and started playing around, I realized that I could do essentially what I was doing, which is creating images on the computer. And to me, it didn't feel that different. So up until even nowadays, I still have this concept in my head of the differences between art and design. And I realize that there are big differences. There's, first of all, you're trying to sell a product most of the time, or a brand, when you're dealing with design. And design is more of a function, while art is just, most of the time just for yourself. It's just a way of expressing yourself. But I still think that, in the last decade, like a lot of clients have realized that having really, really expressive design is just as efficient. And it doesn't apply to every situation, but it still works. But growing up, like, this is my website. This is my first website, and it doesn't look like a website, but essentially this all moved and animated, and my content was there. And I was trying to find a language, a visual language for what I enjoyed creating on the computer and understanding what it was able to do. So it was very rigid in the beginning, just because on the computer everything tends to align really easily, right? And creating mirrored images is really easy, and creating grids and structure is just very natural. While when you have your hand on a canvas with some paint is a different story. But gradually I became looser, and again, just exploring ideas constantly. I was always, even though having a day job, I was constantly just trying out different things at home. Working, like Tommy was joking, I've always been sort of a workaholic, not so much for the sense of like wanting to be successful with a career per se, but more like I really love what I do, so I want to spend every minute of the day doing what I do. But it's unhealthy too, so I've learned to sort of figure out what's the best rhythm, what's the good amount. But it takes a lot of time, and I'm kind of obsessed with alignments, and I'm obsessed with curves and everything being in the right place. And just like a painting, at least for me, you never really know when a design is done. You just have to feel it, and you have to keep working at it until you just work enough that you realize, this is it, this is done, you know, and you have to let it mature in your head and let it kind of sink in. And I think most of you probably know what I mean. But in the process, you know, of doing that, like I tend to have reasons for shapes being where they are. Even though they may not look like it, there's always an alignment, there's always a reason, there's always a connection for the shapes being there. And over time, I sort of got rid of these grids and I no longer need them. But visually, I still move and create artwork in the same way. So that it feels organic, feels loose, feels spontaneous, and feels unconstrained, but it's still very organized. And I think I've had a lot of friends ask me, you know, why is my work so colorful? Because you're Brazilian, because you live in the Amazon, because there's jungle surrounding you. But no, it's not none of that. But it just I guess it's, you know, it could have been black and white, and I've been expressing in a similar way. But here's another example. This essentially this is live. I'm recording my screen as I'm drawing. This took about 3 hours, and I had no planning. I was simply just drawing on a computer. Just to show you a little bit of my process. Of course, this is sped up into 30 seconds, but it's really 3 hours, like I said. And that's pretty much how I create all my images. It's the exact same process. I don't have a sketch. As you can see here, the image on the right is the actual final image, and the area on the left is me showing you how it's been done. It took about 2 days, and this is, you know, a minute or 2 minutes to see how it's built. And of course, you know, just like you have a painting and you have a concept behind your painting, you have an idea. It could be just a feeling. It could be a feeling of anger. It could be an image that you saw, a situation that you experienced. Here, it was actually a project for Adobe, where they wanted to launch CS4 with many artists creating images about essentially what it was like, what it is for you in your creative process. What's your creative process like? Essentially, you know, what is the essence of it for you? You could pick anything essentially. For me, it was the duality between the digital and the analog. The digital being at the top, the analog being at the bottom in this image here. And basically this dance between the two, this relationship between the two, how they collaborate, how they support each other. And even though it may look very chaotic, it's still, again, very organized. And everything looks like it's sort of in motion, actually for a reason, because we animated this. So it's almost done, but I'm going to skip, since you already know what it's going to look like, and show you the piece after it's been animated. So you get the idea. But I think all the work that you saw before, you know, is personal work. And what I was saying about clients realizing that artistic work can, you know, have an influence in what good design can be. And I think it comes into play perhaps in the Adobe campaign, but maybe even in this one for Lexus. I did a series of print ads for them. And I didn't have car ads in my portfolio. I didn't have a lot of corporate clients necessarily that showed how to apply that work to it. But I think art and design really go next to each other head to head in a lot of cases. And the techniques are the same, you know, they're very similar. It's just the production aspect of it is distinct in the end, and the end product and how far it goes. You know, an art piece can just maybe be an image online, or it can be on a wall at a gallery, while design can go around all over the world. Like this piece, for instance, Microsoft approached me about doing designs for office packaging, and did 33 of them. So they're all different. These, you can see what the box turned out in the end, but I did, 30-something of them, and they had this a lot of constraints, The artwork has to be a certain area, it has to not interfere with typography, it has this very restricted color palette of hues of yellow and light yellow, dark yellow, a little bit orange, but it's very limiting. But you can set those rules even for yourself when you're creating artwork. So I think, again, there's a lot of similarities, and I like to remind myself of that because, again, I wanted to be an artist growing up, and so I like to try to infuse every design job that I do with a little bit of sensibility of art into it. Even though in the end it will be like a software at a software shop. It could be Best Buy. I don't know what you'll be here, maybe Fnac or where you'd find this, but it's, you know what I mean. You look at that and I think it's art, and I'm not trying to call it art, but I'm trying to find associations with it to at least satisfy myself and enjoy the process. Now, having worked with still images, I've always had a desire to make them feel like they're not static. Even though they're static, even though they may be on your wall, they may be on the computer, they may be on a magazine, I want them to feel like there's a story behind it, that there was a beginning, there was an end. And that's part of what got me into animation. So before I show you some of the work behind animation, I'm going to show you my reel, my most recent reel, so you can see a little bit of my work.